Hello everyone, my name is Adam and welcome back to pliplop. Alright, you saw the title. We are here today with stories of revenge. Revenge of the petty variety. Before we do jump in, if you haven't subscribed yet, maybe consider it. It'll help you keep up to date with our videos and it helps me out a ton. Alright, let's get started. Airbnb host left me an unfair review and it cost them hundreds. I recently attended a friend's wedding a few hours away from home, and the GF and I decided to get an Airbnb so she could bring her dog. We found a nice place that allowed pets, took off early from work, and arrived Friday late afternoon. About 30 minutes later, the owner shows up to see how we're doing while we have the dog on the porch. We make some small talk and he mentions that we didn't indicate we were bringing a dog. I felt bad as it was an honest mistake, and I'd never lie to someone to get out of paying the pet fee. We tell him that and offer to pay the $25 fee on the spot. He refuses to take the money and says that he loves dog and eventually heads out. We don't think too much else about it, but when we leave, we decide to give the place a much more thorough cleaning than was in the instructions. The dog didn't chew any furniture or leave any other damage or mess, at least that we didn't clean up. In our minds, the trip was a success and the Airbnb was a great fit. I got the email from them to leave a review and I left a 5-star review and said the house and the owner were great. But then I saw his review of me, and a private message where he blasted me for not telling him that I was bringing a dog, how dogs cause them so much more work, and how we shouldn't leave dogs alone in the house. This didn't sit well with me at all since I thought we had handled this person to person when he came by on the first day. I was, and still am, happy to pay for the pet fee. And there was no indication anywhere on the posting that we couldn't leave the dog alone for a few hours while we were at a wedding. Nor did he say that while we chatted and told him we were here for a wedding. For him to post that on my Airbnb profile felt like a cheap shot. I responded to him that in the chat and said as much, and while Airbnb couldn't do anything about the review since it didn't violate any of their policies, my GF did point out that hosts aren't supposed to show up to the property unannounced. I had no idea and figured this was his property and he's allowed to show up, at least to check in with the guests. Normally I wouldn't care, especially since it was a very cordial interaction, but since he took a cheap shot with my review, I decided to do the same. I reached out to Airbnb support to tell them about his unannounced visit, and they forwarded it to their security team. I answered a few questions about the interaction and they spoke to him. A week or so later, they let me know he was in violation of their policy and they refunded me 2 out of the 3 days of the stay, which came out to be about $200, all because of a bad review. So you'll probably notice a theme as we continue reading these stories that it's really not life-altering revenge, but it's just little things like that that are kind of a small win for the person who is wronged in this scenario. Anyway, let's get to what some of the comments are saying about this. We had an Airbnb host, after reviewing us and a month after our stay, message us regarding black Sharpie stains on the granite counter. They said my 9-month-old niece somehow got on the 4-foot-tall counters and defaced it. They said we were disrespectful and should have told them about this instead of trying to hide it under the coffee pot. I told them, have you tried wiping the marks? That looks like skid marks from the bottom of the coffee pot. It was. They didn't apologize. We don't even drink coffee. LOL. I use VRBO. I'm a 5-star guest. We pride on leaving the rental cleaner than when we check in, and we treat the house like it's our own. One rental had candles for use on the deck, which was really nice for late night dinners. We were out and I randomly grabbed a pack candles to replace the ones we used. We got a 4-star rating instead of a 5 because the candles we bought weren't soy. A family member did 1-month-long rental of an Airbnb that was pet-friendly. They brought their dog and paid the deposit, cleaned up before they left. The host gave them a bad review because the pet-friendly Airbnb had some dog hair in it after they left. Yeah, I'm starting to sense this renaissance happening with Airbnb and services like that. I think people are starting to realize that there's all these hidden fees, you have all these rules from the house owner, and I think people are really just starting to realize that the cost basically equals out if you just do a hotel and you have an entire staff waiting on you at the hotel. So I think it's kind of a wake-up call maybe for these Airbnb type companies. I know Airbnbs service a very specific purpose, but I think people are really starting to realize, like, wait, why didn't I just do a hotel? All right, let's see what we got here. I met my old workplace bully whilst he was on a date. So back in June, I left a very toxic workplace of 8 years. I mainly left due to having a breakdown from being overworked, but this one particular person made working there even worse on top of the excessive work. This guy was 1 year younger than me. He was a 30-year-old man, the type of guy that appears to have peaked in secondary school, very jock-like mentality and childish too. He was part of my team of 4. I was civil with him just because I had to work with him, but he was my workplace bully. Apart from just the general workplace banter, this guy, let's call him Chris, was relentless with his teasing. What would usually be classified as playful always pushed to bullying from him because he never knew when to quit. And if he noticed you were getting stressed or annoyed, he'd use you as a target of his teasing for the rest of the day. He would be super nice to you when it's just the two of you, but as soon as he has an audience, he picks his victim and will tease them constantly in what he would call playful. And if you ever got annoyed and stood up for yourself, he'd say he's only messing and makes out like he's the victim. He's that type of person. One specific thing that he absolutely lost any respect I had for him was when I was still working there, some ex-employee wrote a very aggressive and angry review on Glassdoor about the company. Just because this person used a phrase that I used, Chris thought the review was me. As much as I proved that it wasn't me, didn't even have a Glassdoor account at the time, he was relentless with campaigning around the office that I was the one that wrote it. I also believe he told the boss that I was the one who wrote it once I left, and that's why I didn't get any freelance work from them afterwards. So after I left my workplace, my old team still have a group WhatsApp that I'm part of, and we still talk almost every other day on it. After I left, the group chat went a bit quiet. I assume they made a new one of just them, which is fair. But the chat still kept going occasionally. I unfollowed and unfriended Chris on Facebook and Instagram because I just didn't want to be associated with him anymore. In the middle of the group chat, he broadcasts, "Why did you unfollow and unfriend me on Facebook whilst also adding me?" He wrote this message at 6:30 a.m. I woke up to this message and broadcasted in the group chat. It pissed me off, so I was honest and said he's a bully, and instead of making a big thing of it, I'd rather just remove him from the equation. I also said that it was immature of him to do this over group chat and not in private. He didn't say anything. He just left the group chat and blocked me on everything. The group chat pretty much died after that. I was, at the time, livid. This 30-year-old man set fire to the group chat, saw what I did, and then ran off. I thought it must be a blessing in disguise because I finally got to say what I wanted to him, and now I don't have to acknowledge him again. But I was wrong. Skip to 3 months later, me and my husband walking through town and stopping off at a pub to get some grub, and lo and behold, I see Chris there with a new girl I hadn't seen before. I was feeling extra confident and decided to approach. I went and said, "Hey Chris, long time no see," with a big grin on my face. Chris, looking like a deer in the headlights, the perfect kind of red cheeks, I asked him, "How are things? You doing well?" And he replied in a very normal way, clearly not wanting the conversation to continue and looking awkward as in front of his new girl. She asked how we knew each other. I generously waited for Chris to say, "We used to work together." So I added on to that. "Yeah, it's quite funny, really. Chris used to be my workplace bully. He's the reason why I struggled financially after I left my old job because he accused me of writing a hostile review to the company, which I proved I didn't do, and lost me a lot of freelance work because of it." He was gobsmacked, face redder than a traffic light, the new girl clearly looking confused and uncomfortable. Neither of them responded. I didn't want it to carry on much longer as I wasn't really fair on her. But just to add salt to the wound, I said, "So is this your new girlfriend, Catherine, or is this Georgia? What happened with Sarah since someone said you were still with her last week?" All of those are completely true. He gets around. This girl goes from confused to angry in the blink of an eye and just stares at Chris. I just say, "Oh, whoops. I really put my foot in my mouth, haven't I? I better go. It was nice seeing you again, Chris," and walk off. My husband, whilst he felt bad for the girl, which I did too, but to be frank, I might have saved her from inevitably being dumped by him a few weeks later when he gets bored of her, was very proud that I finally got my closure revenge on him. It feels amazing, like I feel petty as but it felt good for there to finally be some consequences to this Chris guy being a dick. Okay. This is certainly a petty revenge story. I think, here's my review though. I think this person could have just left it as he was my workplace bully and he put me in a bad financial situation because he spread a rumor about me. I don't know if he necessarily needed to add all the, other people you're dating and stuff like that, but then again, we don't know the full context. So with that, let's see what the comments say. Definitely don't feel sorry for the potential girlfriend. Better she found out and could dump his ass. Well done. I would have said, I thought your girlfriend was blonde, brunette, redhead, i.e. use hair color other than the woman he is with, but your way works just fine too. Okay, so apparently they agree with everything that happened, but let me know what you guys think in the comments. I want to know. And also let me know if you like these longer form videos. I know we normally kind of rifle through them when we do choosing beggar stuff, but let me know. So with that, I think we'll leave it there. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this one, please consider giving it a like or letting us know in the comment section down below. As I mentioned in the beginning, please consider subscribing. It means the world. Thanks again for sticking around, and we'll see you in the next one.